Hey everybody, how you doing? It's Matt and I'm back for another video, and I really appreciate you being here, folks. Now folks, curio albums that we find here and there that are quite controversial, or albums we hear about that pique our interest, so to speak, and we just have to buy them because of that curiosity factor or that cool factor, whatever you want to call it. Sometimes it's not so cool. You know, for example, albums like Two Versions. Am I ever going to listen to Two Versions? Probably never again. I don't even know if I've listened to it once all the way through. But an album like this, we get it because it's collectible. The collectability factor, it's interesting, it's a fun little thing to have, a conversation piece, and we'll buy something like that. Perhaps an album like this one, Elvis on Stage, which is kind of a riot, a hoot, if you will, okay? And if you don't know what that's all about, go check it out. Or how about this other Elvis one I found? Somebody else in the vinyl community or music community had it, and I just thought it was so unique and different, albeit it's very controversial, that I picked it up. All right, I won't say what it is, so you can read it for yourself. But a very controversial album. There is a lot of Elvis music on here, but it's like a lot of his crappy music, so to speak. I don't consider it all that, but just a very controversial album, and one I picked up just for collectability purposes. Again. And of course, we all know this one. I mean, this is not an original, folks, but I do enjoy having this. It's a very beautiful copy of the Butcher cover. And again, a controversial album cover, which we feel like we have to have it for the collectability purposes. Not that we think it's wonderful or great, we just want to have it for our collection. So I'm in my record store, and I see this other album that looked controversial to me. I said, wow, that's different. What's that all about? So I checked it out, and I said, you know what? I think I'm going to buy it. And I did. I found one, and here it is, folks. I had to get it, although it's controversial. It's the Beatles' White Power album, okay? Very controversial. I understand that. Okay, and here's the back. You just flip it over, and it has all the material on it. Okay, now, when I found this and looked at it, I said, what in the world is that all about? And that's controversial. What is it about? We all know that back in 68 and 1969, in that period of our nation's history in the United States anyway, and around the world, there was a lot of racial tensions, a lot of political unrest, political assassinations were happening in the late 60s, social unrest. I mean, we're seeing some of that today, folks. In today's times, we're seeing some of those same issues regurgitated again and coming back around. And the Beatles were certainly aware of this type of stuff that was happening, the unrest and different controversial events that were happening and taking place during those times near their final years. And there were politicians, and the way they were aware of it is in the UK, there were politicians at the time, like a gentleman by the name of Enoch Powell, who were very considered very politically incorrect, their viewpoints and things they were thinking of. You know, they had, again, this is not a political channel, never will be, so I won't get into the details, but, you know, it had to do with immigration and whether it was good or bad. Some felt his thoughts and other politicians were kind of out of whack. They were speaking blatantly about issues that a lot of people were not comfortable with. He ended up leaving in one of these, Enoch Powell left in disgrace, and there was all kinds of issues. And again, I'll let you look up the research and the details you want to get into that. But it was the same old thing that we hear, and even sometimes we've been hearing in the decades hence about, you know, too many immigrants, and do they take jobs away from other people, naturalized citizens or not, or should they go back to their own countries or get back, so to speak. And I'm not going to get into any politics here, folks. I'm just going to say that you understand, if you understand social issues and things like that, then you know what I'm talking about. It happened back in the day, it happens still today, and all the years in between. These types of controversies and discussions have been going on for a long time, and the Beatles were very in tune to that and very aware of that. So during this Get Back, Let It Be sessions, the Beatles would goof around and jam around in the studio and do some silly things. And they would sometimes come up, and this is just my take on it based on listening to this album. They would come up with various satirizations, am I pronouncing that right, of xenophobia. They would like make fun of what was happening politically and socially in their country and around the world also. But they were kind of goofing or making fun of some of these politically incorrect viewpoints and stuff. And so they came up with tunes that are on this album. And again, I'll show you some of the names here of the tunes. I don't know how good you'll be able to see that. But anyway, I'll just tell you what some of the tunes are. You got stuff like a song on here called Get Back, No Pakistanis, which is a long jam session where the Beatles are kind of satirizing about some of the immigration issues at the time in the UK and what some of the politicians were saying, and you can check it out. But it's a good little jam session. And then there's another one called Commonwealth / Enoch Powell, talking about the same types of issues. And then there's another song on here called Get Off, White Power, hence the album title, and where they're throwing different celebrity names and different political names out there and kind of, picking on people a little bit. And then there's another one on here called Negro in Reserve, which is just a basic little quick introduction to some of the Get Back stuff. But then amongst all this is a lot of them really working out songs like Get Back and I've Got a Feeling and several more takes of Get Back and Do Not Forsake Me, Oh My Darling. It's just a lot of great material on here. There's a version of Get Back on here, which is 9.5 minutes long. It's called Get Back, Gebraus, where it's on January 26, 1969, day 16 of the rehearsals, the German and French version, and also English. But it's like a 9+ minute version of Get Back where they're just grooving along and jamming. And I just find it very cool to listen to. And I loved it. It's probably my favorite track on this album. Now, again, you might be surprised by all this stuff. You might be saying, oh my God, what's all this controversial material the Beatles were involved in at one of their sessions? And, you think of them as the lovable mop tops who sang She Loves You and, all you need is love and all that stuff. And yet on here, they're kind of goofing around with some political issues and some controversial viewpoints and all that. And, you got to figure, folks, they never thought this kind of stuff was going to be released officially, and I'm sure it never will be. I can't imagine that. I'd be shocked if on the new Let It Be Get Back Super Deluxe Edition that's supposed to come out later this year with the Peter Jackson film, I'd be very shocked if some of these tracks are put onto that deluxe box set of Let It Be. I would be very surprised. They could be, but I'd be surprised. I'm really hoping that 9+ minute version of Get Back is put on there because there's nothing really political about it, and it's just a cool little groove, albeit it's a little sloppy, but it's just a fun jam session with all the Beatles, just guitar, bass, and drums, and just having a good time, and I really enjoy it. So I'm hoping that's on there, but I can't see that a lot of this material will be on the new Let It Be deluxe release coming up later. So again, they're on here, they're making fun of, they're mocking the politically incorrect viewpoints of the time, and you got to look at it. A lot of limits that musicians, even famous musicians like the Beatles, they really had some limitations to what they could do or put out on their official releases. They had to be careful with stuff like that. And, what you can say and what you can't say in public, whether you're being satire or whether you're being serious or real about it, you have to be very careful. And I think we're really, even, back then in the late 60s, that was true. But boy, are we really seeing it today in this day and age, folks, where sometimes I think it's going too much the other way where, you got to be ultra careful of what you're saying or what you're talking about or what you're presenting because people are, I feel, overly sensitive today. Pepe Le Pew, anybody? Mr. Potato Head, anybody? What's the latest thing? Snow White is now politically incorrect. I mean, it's just getting, Cinderella, when the prince kisses Cinderella and... I won't get into it, folks, but I'm just saying sometimes I think you have to have that balance. You have to be respectful and courteous to everybody, and being politically correct about things. But sometimes I think it can go too much the other way. And on this album, the Beatles' White Power, you could come off and say this is very kind of sketchy and controversial. But the Beatles, if you listen to it and understand where they're coming from and their viewpoints, we all know the Beatles' viewpoints on these issues, and how they are always ending up on the right side of the issue, the positive side of the issue. So I don't take too much credence in something like this. Something like this doesn't upset me that much. I can take it for what it is and look at it in its context and say, it's a fun little album. The title is controversial, yes, and some of the song titles are, but you may want to seek this out just for collectability purposes, folks. I'm glad I picked it up. I saw it in my record store. I've never seen it before. And I said, you know what? I'm going to take a chance on it. Much like I did with, other albums like this. And they come off as controversial, but they are fun to have in the collection. And you know what? There's some pretty darn good music on this album. And like I told you, I keep going back to that 9+ minute version of Get Back, where they're just getting into a slow, mid-tempo groove and for several minutes. And I keep mentioning it because I love it, folks. So anyway, folks, that's why I made this video, just talk a little bit about a controversial Beatles album that I picked up at my local record store. And it may be some thought-provoking things on here for you. You may want to seek it out. It may be hard to find. I don't know how much you'll have to pay for it to get it, but it's out there, folks, if you want it. So if you want a new album for your Beatles collection, and again, this is came out on the Eli label, ELI, and I think it came out around 2015 as a bootleg. So something you may want to look into, folks. Oh, and the best part of all, how am I forgetting? For those of you that stayed, you get to see it. It's on white vinyl. There's the back here. And again, there you go. Cool white vinyl. All right, folks. Take care. Thanks for being here. I haven't seen you in a little while. I hope to be back soon. All the best. Bless you. Bye-bye.